So, Ilina, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Well, I am older than I like to admit these days. I'm a mom of two, and it's funny even to hear myself say that because, like I said, I feel like I'm too young to be the person sitting in a parent-teacher conference. And I fancy myself a writer, and I love to read, I love to travel, and so those are things that I've been doing my whole life that I have imparted to my children too. I'm also a business owner. I have a marketing consulting business. I'm a blogger. I'm a wife, but because of all those other things, I'm probably not the best wife I could be, but I'm working on that. And I'm a cook. I'm a food fanatic. I love all things about good food, real food, not the fake food.
And you mentioned that you do some blogging.
I do some
blogging. Can you share with us a little bit about how long you've been blogging and maybe a little bit about your blog, Dirt and Noise?
I started Dirt and Noise 2.5 years ago, and it all came about because I had a 1-year stint with our local newspaper to write about beauty products. So what they would do is mail me different products, and I would review them and write about them, and it was really fun. I got great feedback from readers. And the year was up, and I thought I really need to come up with a way to exercise my writing skills. I don't want to lose that. And I did a lot of writing for my marketing job, but it's not the same kind of creative process. So I decided I'm going to start a blog. My friend Tony started a blog when his wife was pregnant, and I thought, well, Tony can do a blog, I can do a blog. So I started a blog, and my very first post was before the primaries in North Carolina, before the presidential election. And so a lot of my early posts took on political slants, and it all started from there.
And where did the title of the blog come from, Dirt and Noise?
Well, I read a quote a while ago that said boys are a combination of dirt and noise. And I have 2 sons, and that quote is totally true. It's dirt and noise. And it's funny because my father thought it was the double entendre of dishing dirt and making noise because I'm opinionated, but I didn't intend for it to be that way.
Interesting. Can you talk about what types of topics you write about in the blog, and you know, where do you come up with the ideas or the topics that you tend to write about?
Well, I write a lot about politics, things that are going on at a local and national level. I write about my children, and not things like when somebody loses a tooth or someone's potty trained, but I write about things in their development and in their growth, and things that I want for when they grow up and read back on some of this, some things that will hopefully help them understand kind of what was going on in my head and my heart when they were growing up. I wrote about when Carter first started kindergarten, and how emotional that was for me, and I never expected to feel that way, but having writing as an outlet to get those emotions out was much more cathartic than just coming home from dropping him off at school and sitting in a house by myself.
And how do you feel about sharing those personal experiences with such a large audience?
You know, it's funny, I don't really consider the audience when I write. I write more for me because I started the blog as a creative exercise for me. I don't write thinking, oh, how are people going to internalize this or digest this? And I do very little editing. I actually just write. I get it out there, and I do it for me first. And again, it's cathartic, and I enjoy writing it. I enjoy the exercise of it. So there are some things that are personal, but I think that they're personal yet universal at the same time. There are some things that I don't write about. Some family issues I've not written about that I wouldn't. There are some things I've written about that have probably upset some friends and family, and they're not things they didn't know. You know, it was no surprises.
Right. And along those lines, have you ever written something that you wish you hadn't, and posted something that you shared through the blog that you looked back and said, oh, you know, I kind of wish I hadn't put that in there?
You know, there's only one time I can think where that happened, and it was me being just fueled by politics. And I posted something about a rumor about Sarah Palin banning books at the library, and I got this in an email and I posted it without doing my due diligence, and it was completely incorrect. what I had written was wrong. So, a commenter called me on it, and I appreciated being called on it, and I was embarrassed that I let my emotions and venom against Sarah Palin drive what I posted to my blog that will live there permanently. So I posted a follow-up saying I shouldn't have done this and it was incorrect. And that was the moment I also realized I'm not a journalist. I'm not a trained journalist. I opine. I don't share news from an unbiased perspective. I share news and information from my perspective. And I don't think you have to agree with me. I applaud people who have the courage to disagree on comments or through email, whatever people are comfortable with. But I don't think you have to agree with me.
And have you ever had a post just stir up so much controversy? I mean, looking back, was there ever anything that you wrote about that just really fueled flames and just drove a ton of commentary and was extremely controversial?
There were two I can think of, and they're very different. One was a very snarky post that I wrote about 50 things that would be deal breakers for me to be friends with you. And it was admittedly snarky and funny at the same time. And you know, some of them were things like, if you wear mom jeans, or if you invite me to Bible study, I'm not going to be friends with you. And that was me. That's also it was me being me. I was honest about it, and a lot of people got really pissed off at some of the things I wrote. And they weren't all snarky, but much of it admittedly was. And I gave a follow-up post saying these are 50 things that are deal makers, that if you do these things, these are things that I respect and I'll be friends with you. And they were things like if you recycle, or if you are a bargain shopper, if you teach your kid manners, right. Things like that. The other post was one I wrote in reaction to something our local newspaper covered about someone in my industry, my business industry, who was arrested for purchasing child pornography. And I thought the article sympathized with the criminal, and I vehemently disagreed with it, especially having 2 young sons. Being a mother, it really rubbed me the wrong way, and we canceled our newspaper subscription after that. I wrote about it, and I got lots of comments from people in support. I got some anonymous comments from people telling me I was unfair and that he wasn't a monster and he had an illness. And then I got some threatening emails anonymously from people saying your career is over in this town. And there was a point where my husband said, maybe you should just take that down. And I said no, because I'm not the one who did anything wrong. I simply wrote about my reaction as a mother to child pornography. I didn't do anything wrong. But it really incited a lot of heat when I wrote it. But I stand by it.
And when you're, day to day, what inspires you? I mean, I know you come up with topics that are related to family and things around politics, but what really inspires you?
It's funny. I have in my little handy-dandy drawer, I have all these notebooks that have all my notes. I carry these things around with me, and these have notes of things that I see that either my kids say or signs that I see on the street. So that's what inspires me. It's what I see. It's what I observe in my everyday life. My kids say funny things while I'm driving, and I have to pull over because I have to write it down. So that's what inspires me so much is my kids. It's also, I think, my own sense of mortality, which sounds strange, but it makes me think I had kids later than I wish I had, and so I do think about how I want them to remember me and how I felt about them, and so I think just our whole family unit and sense of posterity is what really inspires me and drives me to write what I write.